Namaste. Welcome to Such Conversations Matter. Conversations which represent the future we should have. I'm your host, Saurabh Nanda. Today's guest is Mr. Samarth Pathak. He is the Public Advocacy and Communications Officer at the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime. He works from Delhi, but in the lockdown, he actually created something called the Lockdown Learners, which impacted youth all over India. His endeavor with the lockdown learners has been awarded within the United Nations multiple times and outside. Samarth has a background in communications and journalism. He's worked with organizations like Terry, like Reuters, before joining the United Nations. And he's an alumnus of Delhi University and Jamia. I met Samarth through personal connections, through my network, and we never really met, offline like with a lot of my other guests. But we have connected on so many different levels because we share a passion for the Sustainable Development Goals, and we have a very similar personal and professional journey as well. So that makes for some amazing questions. Let me invite Samarth over. Hi, Samarth. How are you?
Hi, Saurabh. Great to be here, and thank you so much for inviting me here. I'm really delighted to join you.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure, Sama, to have you here, and we're going to talk about some really interesting things. Last season, I asked everyone in the beginning as to what are they doing during the pandemic, how are they managing things, and everything. And well, the pandemic is here to stay, so far as we know. So what I'm asking this season is I'm asking all my guests, how was your 2020?
uh, a very interesting question, and I think that everybody that you will meet will give you very different answers. Uh, but there'll be one commonality that it was a surprise for all of us. So 2020 actually began, when the lockdown began, we were all expecting it to be a very short sort of work from home thing. But nobody realized that we would be at home for 1 year. So it was a very interesting thing to experience because we had never experienced that before personally. So at the United Nations where I work, our offices were also closed. We were working from home right from the start. But eventually, within a month or so, within a few weeks, I personally realized that it was having a significant impact on the vulnerable groups. I experienced it firsthand also with some of the people that I knew, some of the communities that I've worked with, the challenges that they were facing. Uh, Eventually, reports started coming in of gender-based violence at home, mental health issues, education, of course, was affected in a very significant manner. So I realized the impact on the vulnerable groups. And in April 2020, I launched something called the Lockdown Learners Series, which was part of a global UNODC program called Education for Justice. So in support of that, it was a sort of a personal drive combined with a professional, work of mine. And we reached out to scores of educators. I focused on education primarily, but also on addressing mental health issues among young people. So we wanted to give them a positive framework. So many children, so many educators also were very, in a shock of how they would be coping up with this. There were a lot of stresses at home. Children actually we saw witnessing for the first time economic impact at home. So it was a very challenging time. So this is something that kept me occupied for most of the year besides other work. On a personal front, I was very fortunate to be with my family, which many people that I knew know were not so fortunate. But I was living with my family, so it was a good time to be. We, you know, really talked, shared a lot of things, and it was a very very good thing having meals together, everything. So we are very close. We came even closer. We also experienced some personal losses in the family and in the friend circles because of COVID 19. So, overall, it has been an interesting year, an eventful year, but also a very mixed year of both happiness as well as sorrows, as I'm sure it has been for many.
You're so right. I mean, I think you've summarized it so well that it has been a surprise for all of us. It can be, it might have been, mostly it was a negative surprise, but for a lot of people, they could see some silver lining as well. But it's so appropriate, and in fact, let me take this opportunity, Samar, to actually also congratulate you on being the finalist of the Jagran Josh Education Leaders Award. And I think your youth leaders. Youth learners series is such a critical step towards telling the entire country that we can use technology in so many different ways to create impact. And so it's not only that I relate with what you have done and what you were doing in 2020, because I also started off with the same aspect of mental health, and I think our journey has been so similar for the past 1 year that
Absolutely.
we've ended up in these chairs together wearing the same shirt,
Absolutely.
looking very similar. But yes,
We
Samarth,
are
please tell us a
one
little.
actually, like uh, shared global humanity, right? So yes.
Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. Um, Samarth, please share with us a little bit more about your professional journey. If you had to summarize your entire journey so far from college till now,
Right.
how would you summarize it?
Right. So I have had a very interesting professional journey. Again, I would say I've believed in experimenting a lot and gaining different sorts of experiences throughout. And I think my professional journey is testimony to that. So my father was in the Air Force, and we were in Bangalore, posted in Bangalore in high school. And in the early 2000s, when I did my schooling, Bangalore was a place where you only did engineering. You could only study to be an engineer. So of course, I had taken up science. I studied, science in 11th and 12th. I studied for engineering, took coaching and all, and actually cleared a few. But in 12th, my father was posted back to Delhi in the board's year, and in
Hmm.
Delhi is the place where my horizons opened. Actually, I realized that there were so many different things you could do. uh, right from school, I was good at writing, creative, extracurricular sort of things, writing plays and all. So I really enjoyed that, but I didn't know that it was a passion or it was a skill at that time. But when I came to Delhi, I realized that there were so many other things that you could do besides the other subjects that we were studying. So after my 12th, I of course sat for my engineering exams, cleared a few, but I also realized that my heart did not lie there, and
Hmm.
I wanted to experiment. So I pursued a course in journalism from the Delhi University. I found it very interesting. It was the first time in my family that somebody had moved to that space, and but my family was extremely supportive, and they said that please do whatever you want. It's completely your decision. So I pursued my journalism from Delhi University, and I found the course to be extremely nice. I found you realize that your interest lies in that area, and we were blessed with very good faculty members, and it was excellent. uh, from an early, from my right from my first year, I realized that we needed to get a lot of hands-on experience because this theoretical thing will not work. So I did a lot of internships during my graduation. Of course, in media outlets primarily, but different print media, television media, even web, small niche magazines. A lot of places I worked as an intern, and that was tremendous experience for me. Now after my graduation, again, most of my batchmates pursued mass communication, masters in mass communication. But again, I wanted to do something different. I thought that I have already done journalism, so I should do a subject, because a hardcore subject is something that would add to my skill. So I went to Jamia Millia Islamia, which is a premier university in India, and I studied in the Department of Political Science, specializing in human rights. And again, I think that mix of the social sciences with journalism was a very very interesting mix for me. So I enjoyed studies at Jamia as well. It was again a place which opened my horizons. It was an amazing experience academically for me. I got to read a lot. I got to research, study, so all of that. So I think that after my masters, I went back to journalism. I went to Reuters Television in Delhi, and working as a news producer. And my experience in social sciences as well as journalism came in very handy. So I looked at politics, I looked at general development issues, human rights, the Maoist insurgency at that time, which was a very, very burning issue. So a lot of stories. And the best part about working in a news agency at such an early stage of my career was, I think, a boon, because at a news agency, you're always fighting deadlines. It is, you know, one crisis after the other. So it was a really interesting thing, made a lot of friends, made very good mentors. I was blessed to have very good mentors at Reuters Television. So after being in the media for a couple of years, I also realized that some of the issues that we were covering, that I was covering and I was interested in, I could not see a resolution to them. I thought that I was covering, of course, highlighting that issue, which is extremely important. But what after that, And sort of inside, I was having this sort of a dilemma that am I doing something constructive actually? So I again had the chance. I thought a lot about it, and I found out that the policy development space, policy advocacy space, was something that could be something that I was interested in. So I started exploring it during my time in the media, and very consciously I made that decision to shift my entire my career, which was in the media, to the development sector, which was very new at that time for me or people who knew me, people around me. So there was a lot of resistance from people that I knew.
Mm.
uh, why are you shifting your career altogether, career trajectory? But I made that choice, and I worked with a lot of international think tanks on environment, on foreign policy, domestic policy, and policy advocacy space is something that really captured my imagination. I joined Terry right at the beginning, the Energy and Resources Institute, and led by Dr. Pachori at that time, who also guided me professionally very, very, very nicely. But I was also led by Dr. Annapurna Vancheshwaran at Terry, who basically held my hand into this space and taught me the nitty gritty. After that, I worked with a lot of think tanks, and in 2017, I got the opportunity to work for the United Nations, which was like a dream come true. And I joined the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime, UNODC. They have an office in South Asia, which covers 6 countries of the region. And my job basically here was in communications and advocacy on their mandates, as well as youth engagement through education. So it was a very good mix, and I've been at UNODC for the past so many years, and it's been an extremely interesting professional journey. Some young people that I engage with sort of often ask me that, oh my God, this is so confusing. This is something that we have not heard. This is not practical advice that, keep shifting your career trajectory. But I really believe that one should keep experimenting and keep learning, new things. uh, keep yourself open to that option of exploring new avenues. Maybe they are unexplored, maybe you would fail, but give that chance, so I say that I'm like a rolling stone. You keep exploring different things, and eventually you perhaps end up like a diamond. So that has been
Wow.
my journey so far.
Samar, there are so many questions that I want to ask you, through your professional journey. And I'm a career consultant. So, there are so many different small little nitty gritties which I keep telling all my clients and students. And I want you to answer them now, actually, because they will understand this better coming from a professional like you. Um, Let me start
Sure.
from the beginning, right? You're an Air Force kid. I was an Army kid, right? So for you, it was a pressure towards engineering because you were studying in Bangalore, which is one of the biggest
Yeah.
cities in India. For me, we were always in
Hmm.
small towns like Jalandhar, Bareilly, Ambala, and
Right.
Goa. So the biggest push for us was always to get into the
Right.
army only, army, navy, air force. That was never there for you.
That was, I think, I've been very blessed to have a family which did not really, push me into that. Of course, the peer pressure was immense. So, not even the peer
Uh-huh.
pressure. Actually, I would say the life in the Air Force. I was very, very captivated by it. seeing my father in the
Yeah.
uniform, seeing the other people that we used to, uncles and aunties, whoever we were, meeting every day, uniform and the whole Air Force life, living in the campuses. It was a very captivating thought for me, but I also realized my own limitations. So I think,
Okay.
yeah,
Got it, got it. So that was the first part, because coming from a military family, you always
absolutely.
have that. Uh, Second was then you moved to Delhi, which is, I think the hub for, along with Mumbai, Bangalore, Pune, etc. For new information, for ways that students can't really see that this is also another way I can, take my career into. Um, how much does it impact a student's life in high school if they are studying in a big city like Delhi?
A very interesting question, Saurabh, and this has also, I think, during my journey with engaging with young people, this question has come up a lot, and right from the students. So I personally, I hail from Mathura, which is a very small town. I, in fact, did some part of my schooling from Mathura as well, and it does impact. If you come to a bigger city, and especially like Delhi, where you have multiple streams, multiple opportunities, it does open your mind, no doubt about it. I have also realized at the same time that students from other towns, I won't say small towns, other towns or other cities, um, they are more hardworking, and they are, they have aspirations, they want to do it. It's just that they're not getting the right opportunities. Cities will not help you in any other way except giving you opportunities and opening your mind. uh, for instance, Bangalore was a big city where I was staying, but at that time, science and engineering were the main thing. When I came to Delhi, I realized that there was social sciences as a stream, which was unimaginable when I was in school. So coming to a city does help because it gives you different options. It opens up different avenues for you. You can understand, you can meet different sorts of people. You can see people from different streams of life succeeding here, right in front of your eyes. We have examples, which I believe that in other towns you sometimes may not have, So I do
Right.
believe that it makes a lot of a difference. At least it made a difference to my life.
Absolutely. And then the third question is that you went to Delhi University, then Jamia, which are two of the top ranked universities from India, right? How much does that impact your career as well?
It did. It did because I realized that a lot of things I was missing in my school that DU gave me.
Hmm.
Like a love for reading, like voracious love for reading, and experiencing different things. I was very shy in my school. DU gave me that opportunity. My professors and my batchmates. I really got to be very confident. I did things that I did not believe I could do earlier in journalism when I was studying. Similarly, in Jamia, the academic rigor there was new for me because I writing long papers, doing extensive research, being scolded because you did not do a good job at it. All of these things I think mattered. So academic rigor came in Jamia. Again, a love for multiculturalism, different values, different ideologies, different thoughts. All of that came in. So I think that it made a difference. It made me a better academic. It made me a better person, and I think a better professional as well.
Hmm. Now, the next one, you said, you had some amazing mentors right throughout your journey from
Hmm.
Reuters to Terry and so on. How much is the importance of having a good mentor in your professional life to actually give you value and maybe help you build the confidence to change the direction if you need to?
It's very important. A mentor is not always your boss. A mentor has to be somebody who has seen you grow, or at least professionally grow, who connects with you, and who can give you strong advice without any favor, without any prejudice. That is a sort of a professional guidance, academic guidance that you require. So having a mentor in your career is extremely important. At the same time, it is very important to be a good mentee. It's not just always good to have a good mentor. You will find a lot of mentors there, a lot of people willing to help you, a lot of seniors willing to guide you. But you have to be willing to be open to be criticized, to learn, to understand your own limitations, to know that you don't know enough. I think that also matters a lot. So yes, I was very fortunate again to have a lot of mentors in my career, gave me academic advice, gave me professional guidance a lot. Not just about, okay, there's a opportunity there or opening doors for you, but actually how to make you better at your work. And that, I think, comes, when you are criticized, when people tell you your shortcomings. So I think every person should be open to receiving that sort of guidance, because that will make you better. Uh, so I have a very different perspective of mentor. Having a mentor. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. In fact, I relate to
Right.
your perspective so much, Samarth. In fact, I think
Yeah.
you're already getting
Yeah.
chain of thought I
Saurabh,
am
Saurabh,
having
may
with
I
these
just add
questions.
one thing?
And
I'm so sorry about this. In
please,
fact,
please,
I
please,
recount,
please, please.
in my when I was starting out as an intern in my, in my graduation. So I was working with a very, very prominent national media channel, national television channel, and you had somebody who you always saw on, your television screens, a very, very senior, highly regarded journalist, who was always around you and very willing to guide you, very willing to help you, interact with you. So I had a lot of other, I had some friends of mine also who used to get guided, and they used to say that, oh, we want to do this, we want to sit in the anchoring station, we want to actually start reading the bulletins. And he always used to say that, no, you have to start right from the, you have to pay your dues, you have to start right from the beginning and learn your way up. So I have actually, during my internships, actually put wires on the ground in the studio, done very, very small things, knowing that it's all a learning process. So you should be willing to do the smallest things, because right at the beginning of your career, that's the most crucial part. When you are in your graduation, post graduation, your first job, I think you have to be willing to do everything. Make yourself as diverse as possible. Don't limit yourself to only your role or only what you think you should be doing.
Absolutely, I completely agree with that. In fact, this anecdote of yours actually reminds me of my one of my first mentors. His name is Sangeet Varghese. He's also going to be a guest over here. He's a leadership expert, lecturer at LSE, Harvard, and all these wonderful places. And he used to tell us, this is way back in 2009 in Bangalore itself. He used to tell us that when I joined the corporate world, it was before 2000. Computers were not there. I think it was
Mhm.
96. That's what the year. There were no computers or something. They used to
Right.
have punch cards. All right. So his boss would just give him work to sort out the punch cards. No analytical work, no nothing. Sort out the punch cards. All right. And he did that for 6 months. And once he got frustrated and went to his boss and told him, Boss, what am I doing? I'm an
Yeah.
MBA, I'm this and that. And what are you making me do? And then he quickly asked him a couple of questions. Okay, tell me about that particular contract. Tell me about that. Because he had sorted out the punch cards, he had all that
Right.
information in his mind. And then he realized the importance of
Mhm.
paying your dues, accepting everything. And that's such a wonderful piece of advice for today's generation, which is so addicted to instant gratification, I think. Right. So Samarth, um, now the final question based on all these questions: do you think it's possible for a young smart Indian today from a small city to get to the same place that you have? Do all of these things, they matter? Yes. But is it still possible for somebody else to do the same thing that you're doing?
Absolutely, and not just possible, they can do it much better than what my professional journey has been. They can do it they can do a much better job at it. In fact, I keep meeting these young people who are very, very ambitious, very hardworking as well. And I see that spark in them. So I know that they will eventually be ruling the roost one day. But it's not about, again, Saurabh, it's not only about small town, big town, because I believe that young people everywhere now, in this day of internet technology, uh, of course, opportunities may be different. Your access to opportunities, access to different things may be different, but the aspiration levels are the same level. As the levels of aspiration, everybody wants to do something good for themselves, and that sort of drives them into their own respective fields. So I believe that every person who's listening to this podcast right now, whichever town they belong to, be humble, be hardworking, and be willing to experiment. I think that is something that will recur throughout this podcast if you keep asking me these same questions. But I think that they can do a much better job than both of us actually, and succeed. Of course, the sky is the limit.
Absolutely. Absolutely, Samarth. In fact, what we have done in this particular episode is, usually the questions that I ask towards the end of the episode, we've already covered that in the beginning. So let's get on to with the episode and talk about the things that we really are going to focus with your professional expertise as well. So, Samarth, you've already explained to us a little bit about about your job, about advocacy in UNODC. Can you also tell us the some of the other aspects of a communications officer at such an organization, such a big organization like the UNODC? Is it just a PR kind of a job? Is it something
Right.
more? What is it
So,
about?
communications officer, regardless of whichever organization that you're working with, of course, UN has a different sort of a. I'll come to the UN part in a bit, but communications officer generally have one job to do, and that is to communicate. And this is something that recently the legendary TV host, radio and broadcasting host, actually Larry King, he passed away recently. He was in a podcast, I believe, a few years back, and he was mentioning this that in his first job, he was fumbling on a radio station. It was his first experience, and his boss and mentor, immediately came into the studio and told him that Larry, your job is in communications, so go communicate. So I think that is what a communications officer does primarily, to communicate. And communicating the organization's work, communicating the organization's priorities, its the different work that it has been doing to a larger audience. Now it's not just about PR.
Mhm.
PR is one part of our work, but even it's a larger picture, because the audience in an organization is very different. You have the government, especially at the UN level. You have the government, you have foreign missions, you have general public who don't know what you are doing, you have general public who know what you're doing, who are engaged on these issues. You have businesses, you have civil society, you have academia, and of course you have the media and others. You have youth
Yeah.
across ages, you have research scholars, you have children as young as those in fifth standard or fourth standard, and your communication with them has to be different. So it's not the same thing that you're communicating to a larger group. It's very strategically done communication with different target audience of yours. And you're communicating your organization's work, but you're also understanding from your audience uh, what what are the alignments, what you are working with, what your organization works on, and what the audience wants, what the audience is concerned with. For example, many organizations, including the UN, focus on the sustainable development goals, SDGs. So communications is also a way. My responsibility also includes understanding the different issues that are happening within the SDG framework, local issues, different social themes that different groups are working on, and how it aligns with our own work at my organization. So communication is two-way. It is to communicate your work as well as to understand what the audience is thinking, what the audience is concerned about. Uh, it also includes a lot of writing, a lot of research, a lot of understanding, listening, meeting interesting people like you, meeting fascinating people who are doing excellent work in different streams of life, and bringing them together. So this is called stakeholder engagement. Engaging different groups on a particular cause. A lot of young people ask me what is advocacy, because this is again a very new thing that some of
Mhm.
the youngsters are hearing now. Now, advocacy, in a very simple way, I explain to them that an advocate takes a case and presents it in a language that the judge would understand, right? Advocacy in a public space would mean that you understand an issue that the public is grappling with, or some people are grappling with, or an issue that generally concerns the society, and you explain it to your key stakeholder groups, be it in the government, be it in the among young people, be it among whichever group that you're working with. So the medium has to be different, the content has to be different, the format has to be different. So it's not just PR. PR is one part of our work, but it's also the larger issue of promoting a cause rather than the organization.
Hmm. Wow, that is so much. I mean, that is so many responsibilities. I mean, the only thing I could think of when you were giving that answer was this is exactly the kind of a job that a diplomat must be doing. A diplomat from India sitting in some foreign country and kind of engaging countries, both the countries, and bring them together. Is it? Do you think that's an
Uh,
analogy which might fit here?
Not completely, because diplomats do a lot of very, very important work in the sense of legal, drafting legal instruments, helping in the UN processes that are involved. So it's a different sort of a game. But of course, communications is key to any sector. So whether you are a diplomat, whether you are a
Yeah.
businessman, whether you are in the social development space, whether you are a very good podcaster, or you are in the communications business or broadcasting, communications cuts across these things. So a diplomat will have to be a good communicator as well. So there will be some synergies.
Absolutely, and that's exactly what I was hinting at actually. So last season, I had Miss Elizabeth Masamune from Japan, and she has been a diplomat, for around 25, 30 years. And she would, keep telling us about different situations between countries and all that, and how French is the language of diplomacy, used to be the language of diplomacy, and all that. And that is what was
Hmm.
ringing in my mind: communication, communication. It's about understanding. So. Clearly, that's a lot of things to do, Samath. Now I mean, I would like to know more about a little bit more about the lockdown learners. You mentioned a little bit about them in the beginning, and first of all, I mean, what has been your real inspiration behind this? When people ask me about why I started working on or creating content towards mental health last year, was basically because of one of my ex students who I could not help, right? And I just felt I've never felt more guilty in my life, and that is why I just embarked on it. Ki at
Yeah.
least something will reach out to somebody. What has been your inspiration behind the lockdown learners?
Quite a similar thing actually that you raised, Saurabh.
Hmm.
My inspiration, so as I told you, we started the Lockdown Learner series in April, and it
Hmm.
had been only a few weeks since the lockdown had been announced. We were also, adjusting to the situation, getting to understand what was happening immediately. But I immediately saw the need to reach out to young people at that time. I've already mentioned there were so many reports that had started coming in already of gender-based violence, mental health issues, economic toll on people. Uh, in my close, I have also been working with some youth groups in different communities, rural areas as well. And I'd immediately sent out a message asking them for their well-being and all. And I started getting some very uh, disturbing answers from some of them.
Hmm.
Education was, of course, suffering a lot. And just like you mentioned, that start something. Actually, this lockdown gave many people like us an opportunity also to explore and do something that above and beyond the call of duty that you would normally perhaps not have initiated during when the circumstances were normal. So I could not sit at home. So we were all working from home, but I realized that you know we had to do something. We had to reach out to the people who needed help at that time. We also saw the migrants exodus to their own villages, and that feeling of helplessness, like you mentioned, of course, came
Hmm.
in. And I wanted to do something despite the restrictions that we had on reaching out and, just like you said, inspiring even one person through your work. I think during those difficult times, it was extremely important. So I conceptualized it, and I realized that, of course, young people were affected. We could not reach out to young groups directly. It wouldn't work because we were all working from home. So I went through educators. We already have a global program called Education for Justice at UNODC, which is highly impactful, highly regarded. We have a lot of educational resources and tools under that. I wanted to combine that with personal touch. So, personally reaching out to young people, talking to them about issues that matter to them, issues that they are facing, and how they can use their own skills, their own talents, not think of things that they should not be thinking about at that time. Instead, use that time productively and do something else. And I wanted to give them that platform. And it was not just, make a drawing or do this or do that. It was actually to say that you will be part of the United Nations. And I promised them at that time that I would showcase all your work at the highest levels in the United Nations. And I think that was a big catch for the young people. So I reached out to them through educators. We created an educators network, and I believe that again during the lockdown, you met. So I met so many inspirational people, just like you must have had, and so many others must have had. A lot of educators were willing to go again beyond their scope of work, beyond their normal duties, and help us connect with others, other educators. So I'm so happy to say that every educator that we reached out to, we started with the cities first. They made us connect with at least 10 other educators easily. And slowly it percolated down. We went to rural areas. We reached low income group communities. We reached small hamlets where students were studying. There was one grassroots educator, two grassroots educators. So we created this network and started these sessions. So we started them online to begin with, but of course, there were so many students who did not have access to online tools or very limited access. So we reached out to them through WhatsApp. Many households now have a smartphone. They had WhatsApp. We did not want to use a lot of the internet, because of their own restrictions. Uh, so we created content repositories on WhatsApp, very interactive. We used audio recordings to interact with them, and it worked almost like we are conversing right now. So you ask me a question, I answer, I say something, I seek your views on it, and it was so interactive, Saurabh. The impact, the response from young people was tremendous. And even now, we have worked through webinars, we have worked through WhatsApp, we have worked even through creating young champions who were doing exactly my job. So I trained a set of young people on the SDGs. I trained some educators on how to interact with students on SDGs, and they created this domino effect. They reached out to others, and the response from both students and educators was tremendous. We had students who surprised me with their creativity, their innovation. We had a group of students in Bangalore who came up with the idea of creating a website where different students could just put in content. So we had students who provided us artwork on gender-based violence, very impactful. Actually, I would be very happy to share with the audience as well.
Please.
We had an online game that students prepared for. It was a fact-checking game. So much of
Mm,
misinformation was happening in around coronavirus at that time. So they created a fact-checking game where you could just go and get the right answers, get the real information, and they made it in the format of a game, which was very interesting. Then we had a lot of students who started up in Jharkhand in a very low income group. They started a notebooks exchange program where they said that, okay, you are teaching us online. Why don't I just note it down on my notebook and I share that notebook with somebody who does not have access to online classes around me. So full precautions were, maintained. People who were going to the market to buy their essentials, there the exchange used to happen of the notebooks, and basically whatever I was delivering was going around, and other content also. Uh, a breakthrough came when the Navodaya Vidyalayas, the Jawahar Navodaya Vidyalayas, which are a premier school in India, a government run, and they cater to meritorious students from different communities. Uh, the commissioner was very supportive of our work, and he said that, okay, why don't you start a pilot in some of the Navodaya Vidyalayas? And I must say that the response from Navodaya schools was also immense. We had students in Haryana who were doing spectacular work. I mean, every morning I used to wake up with messages saying, "Sir, I've done this. Sir, this is what I want to do. This is what I have done. Can you please see it?" And it was a very energizing thing. And I had to actually match their energy levels. We also, I think it was very unique that we also got in very senior UN officials, external experts also to engage with these students. So some of the students from the rural areas, from the other, economically disadvantaged backgrounds, who had never had any direct connection with the United Nations, were now not only directly engaging, but also they could see the UN cyber chief, for example, the chief of the United Nations cybercrime work, Neil Walsh. He came and interacted with these students. So it was a great, sort of boost of confidence, not only for the students but also for the educators. We were also doing a lot of capacity building for educators on different things. Uh, Subjects, of course, you can teach, but how do you teach a student about integrity, about ethics, about human trafficking, crime, all sorts of things. And how do you induce positive behavior changes in them? So this is something that we build their capacities on. We share tools with them, and a lot of content, as I told you, a lot of content that came in from the students, videos, rap songs. There were so many students who did raps around the SDGs, music, songs on different social themes, different content that we got. A lot of panel dialogues were conducted, all of that. We created a separate web page on the lockdown learners on the central UNODC website. We showcased all of
Wow.
that work, and it was circulated extensively across United Nations agencies. You had UN India, which was thoroughly promoting it. We had media, which supported a lot. We had government agencies that this information went to. So the students also saw, their own work being showcased at the UN levels. We also had a lot of UNESCO, UNODC programs, joint dialogues, the UN Crime Congress that happened recently. So different, very high-level diplomatic government forums. This program has been showcased, and I'm very pleased to share with you, Saurabh, that this Lockdown Learners series was highlighted by the UN Innovation Network in its Best of 2020 initiatives, which was a great achievement for us because it was from across 41 UN agencies across the world. Lockdown Learner Series from India was showcased as Best of 2020 initiatives for its impact and innovation. The focus was, of course, on bridging gender and socio-economic divides at that time. And I believe that we have done well, a long way to go, but we are very open for partnerships. If anyone, any educator, any educational institution, government partners, corporate partners, anybody is willing to help promote this cause. There's a lot of work to be done, and we'll be very, very happy to share ideas with you. Please connect with us. Uh, Also,
That's
yes,
amazing,
just
Samarth.
last thing that the Lockdown Learner series, which is part of the larger UNODC's Education for Justice initiative, uh, this program, this Education for Justice initiative, has also received the Innovation Award, the Secretary General's Award for Innovation. So that's a very prestigious thing for us.
Wow, wow. So, I mean, the only thing after listening to that, I just kept on wanted to listening more. Okay, what else? What else? What else? It is such an amazing journey, Samarth. I mean, congratulations on it, and thank you so much for doing it and spearheading this entire initiative. That's amazing. So, Samat, we've discussed this side of things, that when people like you, who are clearly change makers and want to create impact and are doing things, making things happen, creating networks and collaborations, from that direction, it definitely goes out. And uh, I was just recording another episode for season 2 with Mr. Ankit Chhabra, again a very very innovative change maker in Punjab. And he said, during the pandemic last year, for 2 weeks I was bedridden. It was corona negative, but
Yeah.
still I was bedridden for some viral or something, and which happened to a lot of people. He said, okay, so I understood finally that the pandemic is here to stay. I cannot go out of my
Mm.
home anymore. And what he did was he just started something called Joy of Learning. So what he would do is he would bring in youth, and we are talking about college
Mm.
going youth and university going youth, or just post university youth. He just brought them together and started learning, or just talking about different things that they wanted to learn, whether it is about a particular topic, country, process, education, anything. And he was happy to help. He was kind of giving life coaching lessons, etc. He impacted more than 500 people through that, just through a WhatsApp, and without spending a zero rupee on it. And the impact of that was that a lot of these college going youth, they finally started realizing what they have in Punjab. They opened up their own initiatives, non-profits. Many of them cancelled their visas for Canada. So you can imagine somebody from Punjab, rural Punjab, who's given up all his savings to ultimately land up in Canada or the UK, canceling up their visas. That has been the
Right.
impact. My question, Samarth, is this: why is it important to engage the youth today about such initiatives, about SDGs? And then, has there been some amazing stories that you can share with us when the youth completely transformed themselves through your
Of
program?
course, a very interesting question. I'll start with the first, thing. Why is it important to engage young people? It's important to engage young people, Saurabh, because SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals, I believe will not be successful without them being transformed into student-driven goals or schools-driven goals. A lot of students are now aware about the SDGs. They know which issues. Like the first thing that we usually started in the lockdown learner series was that, okay, leave aside your subjects, leave aside your academics, very interactive in a very interactive way. Which issue, if you were in a position of power, if you had a lot of resources, what is the one problem around you that you would like to solve? And students from say fifth standard, fourth standard onwards, everybody had a story issue to share. Maybe it was animal rights, it was cleaning a pond near their house, dirty drains near their house, a road is not there. Some one or the other issue, gender-based violence at home came up a lot during such dialogue. So every young person had an issue to share. The only thing that they did not have was how to do it. What can I do about it? Because I'm too young. And I think that is the space where we wanted to create an impact, and we did. I mean, we gave them that platform that, okay, you can use your actions to do something, not just creating awareness. In fact, the first thing that you do about SDGs is you create awareness, different things that you can do. We said go beyond that. Yes,
SDG 70.
SDG 70. Go beyond that. Start thinking of solutions that you have for this problem. So in Jharkhand, as I told you, led by a very eminent educator, grassroots educator, Shweta Sharma ji, she runs a I won't say she of course is a school educator, but she also runs a very good youth network of students from different backgrounds, especially economically disadvantaged backgrounds. And they started this notebooks exchange program, which was real time impact. I mean, somebody who does not have access to online education is getting education in some way or the other. We also had students from Haryana who created a network on countering gender based violence. So, creating awareness within their own households. So, 16, 17 girls coming together and just starting to talk about these issues at their home. We had again a very, very inspiring story of a girl called Tara Kumari in Devghar, who is a sports. She's very interested in sports. She wants to play football, and very talented actually. But she found a lot of resistance at home and in the community to play football because it's traditionally a game of men. And she would have to wear shorts and all of that. So there was a lot of cultural resistance there. But this gender-based network that was also created in Jharkhand through this program, lockdown learners, they actually talked to the parents, they actually talked to other elders in the community, and that girl actually started playing soccer. And she's of course a state level soccer player. And it's a very inspiring story that I think we would like to share. So Tara Kumari's story as a football player was very, very interesting. We also had young students who used their own talents to do something about it. So we had two young girls from Delhi, Asavri and Ananya, who are brilliant singers. And usually, I mean, they used to do a rehash of you know traditional songs and all. And we told them that why are you not using your skills for social issues? Write for social causes, compose for social causes. They created an album, Saurabh, of 4 to 5 songs on social themes, including gender, including discrimination, including unity in amid COVID-19, bringing peace in the society. Very, very catchy songs. If you listen to them, they have a YouTube channel, Beyond Beatless. And if you listen to these
Wow.
songs, trust me, I mean, they're so catchy that you will just keep singing. We had a girl from Punjab, from Fagwara, who is a rapper, and she said that I want to rap on these social causes as well. So she created a lot of raps for us. So a lot of different things have happened. Students have used their this IT skills, technology skills, to create apps, to create websites, to create blogs, and all of this, I think, leads to a very, I think, a positive direction. Now, so these are the transforming some of the stories that I wanted to share with you. So we have also created a youth network, and now a very vibrant youth network of people who are committed, young people who are committed to taking action on SDGs, particularly SDG 16, which is on peace. And a very vibrant group. They are now doing what I'm doing, promoting this at their own level. So we have a lot of web dialogues, WhatsApp dialogues taking place where students are initiating. So I've also wanted to create a mechanism where student-driven dialogues, student-led dialogues, where students are not the audience, students are the participants, and the others are the audience. That should be the change. So I think we did that, and it was very successful. So it's important to engage with young people on these themes, particularly during COVID-19, because they are directly facing some of the issues that we are talking about: discrimination, lack of education, digital divides, gender, issues. A lot of problems they have faced. They are seeing for the first time economic impact at their homes, and this leads to a lot of stress, a lot of anxieties, a lot of negative behaviors. So it's very important to engage young people, give them that positive framework of action, and also young people are more imaginative, more innovative than we consider them to be. They are not kids, they are not young like that. In their mind they are very mature, and if you give them a challenge they will rise to it. So this is time to give them that opportunity, and I believe that through UNODC we have been quite successful in doing that.
Perfect, perfect. That was such an amazing, insightful, articulate answer, Samarth. I mean, I've never really heard anybody else explain it in such depth and breadth, actually, because this is exactly what we need, especially with the concurrent crises in India right now, which is the unemployment and that the largest or the biggest reason for deaths in youth in India is suicide. So it is helping both. It is such an amazing. It is just so amazing to listen to all the stories
Just
that you've been
lighting
sharing
that
with us,
just lighting that
Samar.
lamp, as you had initially said, just inspiring them.
Mm.
And it's so
Yeah,
positive to see that young people saying that, oh, I have this idea, this is what I want to do, giving them that hope that, okay, you are actually connected with a larger cause, your actions matter, your voice
yeah.
matters, and I think it is very inspiring. Another one very short example I'll give is of the Lawrence School, Sanar, which also has been running a community program. So they have been actually reaching out to nearby villages near Sanar through their students, doing a lot of very interesting work, setting up community libraries as well. So all these small actions. I mean, I have a treasure trove of such stories that I would share. I'd be very happy to share with you at some point.
Of course, of course. I'm going to be sharing all the resources that you have shared with us, all the links that you're talking about in
Okay,
the episode notes, so that people who want to explore more, get inspired, maybe start their own venture, getting
right,
inspired by this.
right.
They can. Now, Samarth, I had a very interesting question over here, and this is related to human behavior and how we basically think. So the moment somebody listens to things like these, okay, there are so
Hmm.
many people doing so many things, right? They have two three thoughts in their mind. First thought is, wow, I need to get involved, okay, somehow, because they get inspired maybe. The other thing is, oh, but what will I do? I mean, those
Hmm.
people are from the UN. They are
Hmm.
from Jawahar Navodaya Vidyalaya. They're such big people. How can I contribute, right? And the third thing is, that they're already doing it, right? So I don't need to do anything about it. Can you tell us, can you tell the audience here, why is it important for each one of us to do something about these things?
It is very important. I'll tell you why. We in India and South Asia, we are home to the world's largest youth population, and young people's actions matter. That it's a given thing. I'll tell you why. Because when a young person makes even a small change at their home, even where they are living, Even if you can convince your elders, or you can tell them about cybercrime, for example, how do you prevent frauds? How do you prevent your parents from getting into cyber fraud? Because you are more tech savvy than your parents. If you can tell your brother to not discriminate against anyone, if you can teach your sister about gender-based issues, if you can not teach, matlab, engage with them on these issues, I think it can create a lot of impact, and it shows. I mean, it's a proven thing. It has shown us. Uh, a lot of people, like you said, say that we want to do, but we don't know how to do it. We don't have the avenues. I have a very simple answer for that. Please reach out either to Saurabh or to UNODC, to me directly, and I'll be very happy to actually give you a sort of a framework where you can actually contribute. This is not just for young people, this is also for schools or educators who are listening in, who might want to do something more substantive in terms of linking their efforts with the SDGs. And SDGs are important because it is also a part of the new education policy, a focus on global citizenship values, a focus on ethics and integrity, which is all a part of the sustainable development goals. So, post COVID 19 is a very important time for educators as well as young people to start doing things on the SDG framework. And this framework is very easy to understand. It gives you it's a very easy way to identify what you would like to work on. It's a very sort of a clear plan of action for you. So, first thought, if you are inspired, if you want to do something, please get in touch with me. My name is Samarth Pathak, and I work with the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime. Very happy to help you. Please visit our website, and you can link with us. We are also available on Facebook, Twitter. Please drop in a message, and I'll be very, very happy to connect. People who think that, oh, this is an institution that we have not connected with before, perhaps, or it's a larger sort of a program, or a larger sort of an institution. That's not what it is. It's about partnerships. It's about collaborations. Even if you can touch the lives of 5 people, 10 people, a very, very small group, your actions matter. You can actually contribute. And UNODC, as well as other UN agencies, will be very, very willing to help, very willing to work with you on an issue or an idea that you would like to work with on the SDGs. So, what we would like is a plan, is a sort of an idea that you would like to share with us, and it will be considered. I mean, that is not a bar. In fact, increasingly, most organizations, including the United Nations, and I can, in a very confidently say UNODC, is increasingly looking at working with people who are working in localized contexts, in particular villages, particular cities, particular towns. If you have an idea, we will be happy to work with you. So we are looking forward to hearing from you. Again, we are available on Facebook, Twitter. Our website is there. We are the UN Office on Drugs and Crime, South Asia. So please feel free to visit us and drop in a message. Otherwise, maybe Saurabh, in your episode link, you could perhaps uh, find a way of connecting us.
I will. I
The
will.
third group who feels that, oh, they are already doing something, what is there for me to do? There's a lot of work that you can do. This work is never enough. You cannot, you know, you can work a lot on these issues, but we always need extra hands. We always need more support, more work, more volunteers. So, be it corporates who are working through their CSR teams, uh, we'd be very willing to explore a collaboration with you. If you are a young person who wants to do something, but you feel that, oh, they're already working on it, no, you can you can play a strong part in countering gender-based violence, promoting gender equality, uh, protecting the environment, preventing corruption, preventing crime. These are issues that need a lot of focus, and no work is enough. You have to keep working. So don't think like that, and please join hands. The more, the merrier in this work. And together, I believe we can create a very unique model of collaboration be it young people, educators from the grassroots, businesses who are willing to support such work, foundations who would like to support this work, governments, multiple stakeholders, the media. I think we all need to come up with a joint sort of a multi-stakeholder approach to address these problems.
Amazing. And I think I was just fishing for that answer, and you gave me that answer, Samarth. That no matter what we do, it is not enough. We need to reach the SDGs goal. We need to achieve them by 2030. Only
Correct.
what 9.5 years left, and it's not enough time, and we need to get our act together. Amazing. Um, Samarth, last thread of questions. I know our conversation has been going so long, but then it is so energetic. It just feels like we should keep going. Um, I'm going to ask you the last thread of questions now. Youth today and the internet, social media, cybercrime. Let me just put this into perspective for a lot of listeners. India still has around 50 crore people who have not joined the internet bandwagon yet. They're still yet to access internet properly, and all of those women are obviously the unequal victims, I would say. Then at the same time, India is the world's cyberbullying capital. There are statistics which show that 1 out of every 3 students or young people who goes online will be cyberbullied. Now when you have these simultaneous pandemics happening in a country like India, where you don't have access to internet, at the same time you are the biggest bully in the world, and it is something similar to you have obesity and malnutrition going simultaneously in a complex country like India. What is how do we tell our youth about educate our youth about cybersecurity, bullying, fake news, tackling polarization, making sure that they listen to all sides of the argument before making a decision, not being impulsive, then taking care that they're not addicted to screens, they're not damaging their own bodies, their minds, their emotional well-being, and so on. How do we do that? Do you have any good practices
Right.
which you would like to share with
So
us?
cyber crime and strengthening cyber security is a very core area of UNODC's work. In fact, the UN cyber chief is a UNODC official, Mr. Neil Walsh, and we have a very comprehensive program around cybercrime and cybersecurity. We work in different ways, very technical work. I won't get into the technical side of it, but of course, cyberbullying, sharing of objectionable material, a lot of cyber payment frauds that take place, a lot of bullying that takes place. All of that is very are core areas of our work. Uh, the best part about the best thing is prevention. Actually, I would very honestly, because we are talking at the young youth level here, and through you I'm directly talking to young people. Prevention is the best thing, and it's very important for us and for you as young people to ensure that you are standing against cybercrime, any forms of cybercrime. One thing that young people should know, and I mean, you already know it, I'm just voicing your thoughts. You are much better than your previous generation when it comes to cyber use, technologies. Of course, when it comes to law enforcement, when it comes to police, when it comes to cyber cells, UNODC, other security agencies, there are mechanisms in place which can, apprehend the criminal. We can track wrongdoings. We do conduct a lot of work around that, around countering cybercrime in a very legal way. So, of course, those practices and those mechanisms are in place. I don't want to get into that. You know that already. But as youth, you are more savvy with technology than your previous generation is. And that gives you more power to do good. Sort of, we have had young people from schools in Noida, schools in Bangalore, schools in West Bengal, and other cities and states, who have told us that there was one cyberbullying incident in my school. Every time we had a session on cyber security, we always had students who said that, oh, there was this one issue that happened. Somebody was stalking online, and usually when it comes to breach of privacy like this, cyberbullying, blackmail, exploitation, and all of that. Unfortunately, it is done by people that the person knows. He or she is in your circle largely. Unlike payment frauds that usually happen, because of strangers, people who you don't know, breach of privacy will happen largely because of people that you know. So it's important to create a positive network and stand with people who are affected with it. Cyberbullying is never good. It can lead to disastrous consequences. First and foremost, of course, the person can be caught. If there is a legal case that is filed, if there's a complaint that is filed, cyber bullying can be a very, very serious issue for the perpetrator. But more than that, it is important that young people take a stand against these things. The other thing that I would like to share is payment frauds. Again, that's a part of cybercrime. We have had a lot of cases, a lot of stories, Saurabh, where young people told us that, I was sitting in the living room with my parents or my grandparents, and they received the unknown number call, and they said that, oh, if you just download this and click this, some money will be transferred to you. And these parents or the grandparents were actually about to do it when this young person from 7th standard, 8th standard, 9th standard, they said, oh, what are you doing? This can be a cyber fraud. So you know that these things happen, right? And that's why young people can play a very significant role in creating awareness among their previous generation, in your parents, in your grandparents about these issues. So there are two separate things. One is create awareness against payment frauds, against all sorts of banking frauds, phishing operations among your elders, and cyberbullying, harassment, exploitation, all these things. You should always work with your peers on these things. Always provide a positive framework of support. We have had some very harrowing stories where victims, I mean, young people were actually driven to very serious mental health issues because of bullying. And it may be fun for you, maybe in that initial time, but the guilt of that can really, really weigh you down in the longer term. And it's always good to stand up for your friends. Please, you should always stand up for your friends. So take a stand against cyberbullying. The other thing is, of course, cyber security. That's a very important thing across age divides. Increasingly, Saurabh, we are on different social media platforms. And one exercise that I always tell youngsters to do is to, and this is something that was suggested to me as well. If somebody, just imagine for a second, if somebody was to do any sort of online harm against you, if somebody was to blackmail you, exploit you in some way, or do some nefarious activity against you online, what is the information that they could get from your social media profiles? Is it your number? Is it your email? Is it your profile photos? Is it your friends? Is it your family? What is it? We have had a lot of cases where students share, students tell us that, oh, I realized that I had already given my address, my residential address in my photo because I was standing right outside my house and my address was clearly visible. Similar stories. I had my email and I didn't know that it could be unlocked. Changing passwords is very important. So there are a lot of practices that youngsters should do. There are some red flags. Don't open any emails with suspicious names. You know that a name is suspicious when you see it. I don't have to explain it to you. If you come across a link, a PDF file, uh, be very careful in downloading it. Nowadays, during COVID-19, we have seen a lot of fake websites only intended for frauds that have come up. So be very careful. I know that you may be offered very heavy discounts on a website, and you may be, of course, it's a very human tendency to go and buy it. But trust me, if you click on it, there are cases where the money just goes and you don't get anything out of it. So be very careful. These are some standard practices. Happy to share more information with you through our links that we'll be sharing. But first and foremost, create a cyber network of peers with your own peers and create awareness against different forms of cybercrime. Always stand up against somebody who is engaging in bullying. Don't support them. One person who is standing against a cyber bully can actually change things completely. So that would be my advice for young people.
Very nice, Samat. Just to engage you a little bit more, what about fake news and polarization? Because
Yeah,
young people, they're not that well read. They do not know, or they do not have references
right.
as to what is correct and what is not correct. How do they, counter that?
I have a very simple formula for that. Uh, of course, as you mentioned, there's a lot of fake news happening, a lot of misinformation happening, and a lot of disinformation happening. There's a difference. Misinformation is something that we unconsciously sometimes do, in the sense that you come across some sort of information and you forward it without verifying. We have our family WhatsApp groups. We know how it works. Something comes to us and we immediately forward it without verifying, without knowing, where it is coming from, what is the source. This is something that unfortunately and unconsciously some of us do engage in. Disinformation is when you know that that information is wrong. It can create havoc in the society or where you are sharing it. It can lead to some sorts of problems. It is wrong and you know it, and you still choose to forward it. That is disinformation. Both of these are very dangerous during crises like this, during emergencies like this,
Hmm.
because it is not just a pandemic of the virus, it is also a pandemic of misinformation. Just Google coronavirus and just think about it. When the COVID situation started, so much of information on WhatsApp, on Twitter, on websites from various sources, you were bombarded with different information. And what did it result in? It resulted in confusion. Because when you have, it's like your exams, one day before your exams, it is a golden thumb rule. Don't study from multiple books. Take one book and try to study from it. Why? Because if you study from different books, you will, one day before the exam, you will only get confused because there's so much of information that you would be processing. Similarly, with this, we had one issue, COVID 19. What is it? How do we prevent it? And a barrage of information. Much of it was fake. And it just created a lot of distortion, confusion. Some people followed some rules, some people followed it was not right, it was not appropriate, they did not. So it was a mix. And during such emergencies, this can lead to a disastrous consequences, which we witnessed, because the cases rose rapidly, a lot of people lost their lives. So misinformation and disinformation are something that we should be very, very careful about. I have a personal rule about this. The rule is always check, always verify any information, external information that you are receiving.
Hmm.
If you have any doubt about that information, don't share.
Hmm.
Just don't share. You don't have to share everything that comes your way. Just do a basic fact check. And how do you do a fact check? You go to different websites, you go to different credible sources. And credible sources could be government websites, could be the UN websites, especially if it's on the COVID 19 situation. You could analyze different multiple media sources, not only aligned with your own your own mindset. Go beyond that. If you have one common information, chances are that that information is correct. There is still a possibility that it may be wrong information, but still the chances are minimized. So fact checking is very important. Everybody must do it, especially on important issues like this. Don't just create panic by sharing. And that is the other thing that I'm coming to, that misinformation can lead to a lot of panic. If you have something and you share it somewhere, it can lead to a lot of panic. An example is when the lockdown was announced, immediately we were told, like in our own society WhatsApp groups, the information came that, oh my God, go to the store because everything is going to run out. There'll be nothing left for you. So we had long lines, long queues outside the shops, and it didn't happen. The things were not as bad as they were made out to be in those WhatsApp forwards. Similarly, mistrust against certain communities, mistrust against certain people, certain groups, due to COVID 19, all of that happened, and all of that was due to misinformation. So another golden rule is that if any message comes to you, and automatically within you, if a feeling of hatred is generated, if you feel angry about something when you hear that message, if you feel panicky about the situation when you hear that message, if you have negative feelings in you when you get that message, don't forward it.
Hmm.
Chances are that it is misinformation, it is fake news, it is not as bad as it is being made out to be. consult with your elders, consult with people, and spread positive messages, spread correct information. I think that would be another thing that for people to follow. But any message that incites feeling of hatred, anger, anxiety, panic, chances are it is misinformation. So that would be my advice. In fact, some of these young people that we have worked with have taken it to heart, and they have been actually creating these alternate communication channels where on social media, on their own WhatsApp groups, where they are correcting wrong messages that are coming in. So I was told by one young girl that one of her uncles used to share a lot of information that used to come his way, and she has been able to change his behavior. So that's a success.
Perfect, perfect. And you're so, so accurately stated, actually, all these important aspects, all the young people need to know. I think the biggest learning from this conversation has been for people, will be, I hope, that, the youth are so empowered already. You just need to probably give them a slight nudge, show them the direction, show them a path, just encourage them a little, and they'll do everything on their own.
Right. Can I add one thing, Saurabh, here? Just
Please, please,
one thing.
Samar, go ahead.
One is that you just because you have made this thing so interesting that again the only thing missing is a cup of tea, I believe. Otherwise, it would have been even
Next
more
time
fun.
you're in Jalandhar or I'm in Delhi, will definitely cover that as well.
Absolutely, would love to. Um, but one thing, that young people, you already have knowledge, you already have skills. Just learn a bit more. Just polish your own, knowledge. Learn a bit more about the SDGs, because SDGs give you that platform from which you can hone your skills. You can understand different issues, how they are interlinked with each other. So you already have skills, you already have knowledge. Learn more, gain more knowledge about these issues. Combine them with your skills. Combine them with what you already have, your own talents, your own ideas and thoughts. And knowledge plus ideas, knowledge plus actions can actually lead to achievement of a lot of SDGs, a lot of solving of social problems around you. A very simple thing, like I mentioned, people who don't have access to online classes, just note everything in a notebook and share it with them.
Hmm.
As a first step, it's not a perfect solution, but something is better than nothing. So
Yes.
knowledge plus actions can actually do a lot, and you already have knowledge. All you need to do is find a way to do it, and that is where UNODC comes into the picture.
Perfect, perfect. And that's something very similar to my mantra for life. Education empowers, and I think now there's a beautiful analogy to it. Knowledge plus action is equal to achievement of SDGs. Perfect. Samarth, last question. We've already covered the career advice in the beginning, so one line that you would like to share with the world, which makes the world a better place.
Um, it would be, let your conscience be your guide. I think everybody, all of us, need to work with our conscience, because I believe that the heart, whatever you, even if you're doing something wrong, you personally, you would feel a pang in your heart. You would know that, okay, this is not right. I'm doing this, but this is not right. Everybody, I believe, knows this deep inside their heart. And that heart, that voice that you hear is called conscience. So my mantra would be, let your conscience be your guide. And as far as your career is concerned, keep experimenting. Don't limit yourself to what you think you can do, or what others say you can do. Keep experimenting, keep exploring. Uh, Whether you succeed, whether you fail, whether you do, better than what you had expected, whatever you do, it will be your journey, and nothing else matters. It's your journey, your decision, your goals, your life. Nothing can be more satisfying than that. That's it.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Samarth. It has been such an insightful, educational, and energizing conversation with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Saurabh. Really, really enjoyed it. And thank you once again for the opportunity.